I'm LISAEVERS, and this is Street Soldiers.
Box 5 and Hot 97 present Street Soldiers with LISAEVERS.
Overnight success in the music industry can be exhilarating and dangerous for a young artist. Pop Smoke was on the verge of mainstream success when his life was taken in Los Angeles. And at just 20 years old, he was on his way to making a lasting impact on hip-hop culture. It's drill beats and Pop Smoke's unique deep voice, Welcome to the Party became an explosive summer hit and gave Pop Smoke a real chance to leave the street hustle behind. Music producer and Hot 97 DJ DREWSKI broke the record on air and worked closely with the Brooklyn-raised artist.
He's really focused, he's excited, and he was a workaholic. We went from an album release party that he had. The city was out, the energy was crazy, and instead of going and celebrating, he went straight from his release party right into the studio.
And I'm back in the studio, about to make another album, another mixtape. Crazy for y'all.
This ain't even
You know what I'm saying?
By mid-February 2020, Pop Smoke's mixtape, Meet the Woo 2, broke into the Billboard Top 10. He was signed to Republic Music with a top management team and had upcoming sold-out concert dates. What he told DREWSKI months earlier was coming true.
It's definitely a plan, but it's definitely still organic.
Right.
By plan, I just mean it's God's plan. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's not like I'm overthinking. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking. It's just happening.
A rise that fast can also bring new risks and new people trying to get a piece.
People thinking if they get next to you or if they touch you, they're gonna come up off you. So you gotta divert from all that.
About 4:30 a.m. on February 19th, sources tell me multiple gunmen broke into the Hollywood Hills home Pop Smoke was renting, entering through a bedroom balcony. There were 3 other people in the house, but only Pop Smoke was shot. Sources say it was a targeted hit, not a robbery. There were no security guards in the home. The LA County Medical Examiner determined Pop Smoke was killed by a gunshot wound to his torso. He made no secret of his gang affiliation, but the motive is still not known.
If we want to make a difference, and if we don't want to see another Pop Smoke next month or another Nipsey next year or whatever the case may be, then we have to change the energy in our communities. We have to change the energy within ourselves.
So what lessons can we learn from Pop Smoke's life and career? Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining me for this episode of Street Soldiers is Danny Sue. He's the CEO of AMG and RGF Music. He was formerly Fetty Wap's manager. Danny, great to have you with us.
Yeah, great to be here, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Also joining us is DJ DREWSKI. He's a Hot 97 DJ and personality. He's a music producer. His latest record is called Mary Jane. It features Pop Smoke and Lil TJ. DREWSKI, great to have you with us again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Also joining us is Chuck CREEKMUR. He's the CEO of allhiphop.com and a hip-hop commentator. Chuck, great to have you back with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. DREWSKI, you work with Pop Smoke.
Right.
And did the record with him. Give us a sense of where he was with his career right now.
Before even working on the record, I hit him up early on when we first got wind of this Welcome to the Party record that was moving in Brooklyn super early, and I hit him up and I said, send me the record. We want to be the first ones to play it on the radio. We want to help push your career. He sent the record, and I played it on the radio that night, and he missed it. So he hits me up, play it again. So right there, I seen his enthusiasm, and I seen that he was excited. He knew what he had, and then we just started building a relationship from that. He knew okay, I see this, DJ DREWSKI's here to support me. We just started building a bond, and I respected him a lot because there's a new sound that everyone's talking about, this Brooklyn drill, right? It's called Brooklyn drill, and he started spearheading that and kind of owned it, which opened the doors for other artists. So even at his first interview when he came up to Hot 97 and he interviewed with TT Torres and Bobby Trends and he interviewed with myself, he brought these other artists along, Fabio Foreign and Mr. Swipey and Ether the Connect, and these were his guys, and he was not only worried about himself, but opening the door for these other artists.
For the other guys and the
Right.
other guys from there. And we're going to talk about that more,
Right.
a little bit more. Chuck, when you look at him, that song, Welcome to the Party, was the song of the summer, and it just blew up like that. When you see where he was at with his career at the time that his life was taken, what can you tell us about where he was with his career?
I mean, he was on level 10. He had Brooklyn on lock, and he had a movement that was really, I mean, it was phenomenal. And when you talk about Brooklyn drill, that's a whole different genre almost, in terms of New York hip hop. So to have someone pioneer that and actually create a new sound or help create a new sound or be one of the pioneers of that sound, I mean, it was crazy. And all my young lions, I was gonna say wolves, but lions, you know what I mean, were very in tune.
With that whole sound. Danny, what was your reaction when you heard about the fact that he was killed?
I was like, it was not another one, another young black individual from the inner cities from where we come from. You know, we classify it as the hood. I was just upset. It touched me kind of different for him to be somewhere and not have, I'm not saying he didn't have the right people around him, but those are the type of things that you need to teach these young artists that's coming up nowadays.
When you heard it was, we're going to talk about Los Angeles and being out of town too, but DREWSKI, give me a sense of like the music movement, because the producer, and correct me if I'm wrong, the producer on Welcome to the Party was British, and there's that whole London connection with drill too. So was he really spearheading this whole new movement for New York, which is probably the newest thing in a long time?
Yeah, well, a lot of the young artists coming out of Brooklyn were making that type of music. And of course, it was influenced by the London and the UK and that drill music. Then you had Chicago drill. But for New York, it was a new sound. Like the kids, I would DJ parties in New York, and the young kids would go crazy to this sound. You know, shout out to Axel Beats, who produced a lot of these records. But he owned that sound. You know, he was the leader right now of that sound. And you know, if you went out of town, they would bring his name up first. You got records like Pop Smoke, and then everyone started knowing Pop Smoke as, you know, the leader of this Brooklyn drill music,
of this movement.
So yeah, but you know, there's others doing it, but he was just owning it, and he was taking other artists from, you know, other genres and just other sounds and putting them on his records. So you hear Travis Scott on Pop Smoke record, you know, not Pop Smoke on a Travis Scott record.
Right, which was a big thing for somebody at his stage. At his stage in his career. Chuck, in terms of how the media looked at him too, because this became, you know, a major news story as well nationally because of how it happened, who it happened to, where it happened in the Hollywood Hills. As an artist, he was a very serious artist. Is that being lost in some of the coverage?
I think so, because he was still on the rise. He was still on the, you know, there's a lot of people that didn't even know who Pop Smoke was until he passed. Very similar to Nipsey in that regard. You know what I mean? So I think that there have been so many young rappers dying, some that we know of and some that we didn't even know of. And I think he was one that kind of was in the middle. Depends on who you were, how tuned in you were. So I think that the unfortunate fact is that a lot of his legacy up until this point, may have gotten lost. And I think the positive side is I think a lot of people will actually go back and listen to him. And I think we've seen that already. I don't know the percentage of increase in streams and listens, but
no, I'm sure it's huge. Just like what we saw. It jumped.
I've seen like records like Dior at 36 million streams today.
Wow.
Right. So it's jumped a lot.
It's jumped a lot. Danny, when an artist, because you were managing Fetty during that breakthrough year that he had, I think it was like 5 platinum singles in one year. He was dominating the Billboard top 10, and he was in his early 20s or late teens. What does that do to an artist's life, just in terms of the demands on them, the attention that gets to them when you have a song? Unfortunately, Pop Smoke hadn't gotten to that level yet, but when they have that kind of sudden success,
it flips his whole life around. They end up turning to be like somebody famous overnight, and when you become famous overnight, there's a lot that come with that. Like a lot of more fans, people wanting things from you, people needing you here, wanting you to do drops there, telling you to do, come to my daughter's show, well, come to my daughter party or my son party, or could you do this or could you do that? It's just overwhelming for a young person that's only like 22 years old. You know, they just started living life actually. So it was a lot of stress on them. But then you figure it out after a while. You know what I mean? It's part of the game.
But hard to navigate without like some real experienced, seasoned, grown men around.
Yeah, exactly. It depends on your team. Like with Fetty Wap, the team was so strong that a lot of us knew exactly where we was going. Like when we go to Cali, I used to live in Cali. You know, when we go to Miami, I used to be in Miami. When we go to all these states, I frequent these states way before we popped off with Fetty Wap. So I had relationships over there in most of the states. So that made it a lot easier.
To move around.
Yes.
And also to shield your artist from having to deal with any of this other kind of drama that might come with the sudden fame and with being in a city that's not your own city.
Exactly. That was my whole game plan, to shield the artist. We take all the hits as a manager. You know what I mean?
All right, we're going to talk about this. We're talking about the tragedy of Pop Smoke, the loss of Pop Smoke, and these other young artists. I'm Lisa Evers, your host. We'll be right back.
People group together to protect themselves. Now it's just like snakes in a barrel.
DREWSKI, one of the things, because you work with Pop and
Right.
Pop Smoke, and you work with him on the record, and also you had a show that was planned with him.
Yeah. So, you know, Danny spoke on having a strong team around you, and he was under Victor, which is his label, and management was Steven Victor, who worked with Kanye West, Pusha T. He ran good music for a while. So at that point, I knew his team, and shout out to Rico Beats. They were mature, they experienced, they knew how to move artists around. So he definitely had a strong team behind him, a supportive team, people that cared about him. I've watched it, I've been in the studio, and they were there with him from, you know, the time he got out the car to the time we got in the studio, and they kept a good eye on him. So I just wanted to make that clear, like his team, you know, the immediate team was definitely, you know, all for him. You know,
And really watch him, but the fact is, Danny, it's like you can't be with an artist
Right.
24/7. This happened at 4:30, about 4:30 in the morning, after there was according to the reports, a party, you know, a party that had
House
ended
party.
house party ended a couple of hours before. So you can't be as management with the artist 24/7.
right.
Those are the nights you stay up for 24 hours a day, 2 days, 3 days. That's what the rock and roll or the hip hop lifestyle is all about. Like sometimes if you had to get some rest, you gotta jump up when you hear it's a house party,
Right.
and you got to get over there. If you're not getting there, then things, you know, certain things can happen. Not saying that it always will happen, but you just got to be on go 24/7.
Because that's that zone where anything can, you know, somebody can bring somebody can call somebody. Chuck, in terms of when people heard Los Angeles, that kind of hit a sour note with a lot of people, especially from New York, going, what is it? Why can't a New York artist, even though it was many, many years ago, the last century, they still think about what happened with Biggie.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm wearing this chain right now, Biggie chain, because that immediately came to my mind. And I mean, I think that's in our DNA, our like generational DNA, that this has happened before. It's obviously not the same thing, but it just brings back thoughts of, you know, Biggie going there, perhaps being set up. And, you know, you just wonder, how safe can an artist from this side of things be on the West Coast? It's just what you innately would think, even though things are much different now, far more peaceful. There's far much more love between the coasts, but the streets are the streets.
And a lot more travel. I mean, Nipsey had spent a lot of time here in Brooklyn,
Definitely,
with a lot of people too. But
Right.
but Danny, when you heard L.A., because L.A., like New York, we're used to the whole New York area. We're used to people coming from all over the world here, so it's not a thing of like you're coming here unless you're coming right onto their specific block, you know, or their corner or whatever. But L.A. seems to be different.
Yeah, it is. It's more of a relaxed type of lifestyle in LA, but at the same time, it turns up quick.
So you could be fooled by the relaxed
Oh
lifestyle.
yes, you definitely could be fooled by the relaxed, because it's very relaxed, because it's the weather is great. You know what I mean? A lot of people out there are great. It just goes back to who you know and how you know them.
Chuck, the gang issue. Pop Smoke was known to be a Crip, to have that affiliation. It seems like a lot of artists now have gang affiliations. What's your take on that?
Well, my take is, it seems like a requirement to be relevant in the game right now. From a street perspective, I don't speak on that too much, because I don't live that life and never have. But
In terms of the
I will
music
say
industry,
this: in terms of the music, it just seems like that's a requirement, that you have to have an affiliation. So if you look at, say, a Tekashi 6ix9ine, which is like the most extreme and negative case, that we all knew that he was not a part of that. He was not about that life.
Right.
You know, we knew in our space he was a troll from the very beginning. Again, the negatives, the most extreme and negative side. But it just seems like the big homies, if you will, who are probably younger, you know, pretty young guys even, recruit these guys in a lot of instances and put them out there. And
So
I'm
you're
not
saying,
sure.
so are you saying you think that the gangs, when they see an artist, even if he's not affiliated or not really seriously tied to the streets, they see an artist start to bubble up or start to, you know, get attention and make some traction, that they approach that artist and then go like, listen, you need us, and
That's
you know,
my
you're
opinion.
with us.
That's my opinion, and I don't know that to be fact, but that's my opinion because, again, it just seems like certain moves don't get made when you come from that life. And again, I'm not speaking directly about Pop Smoke because I didn't know him, but just to say that we have to guide these guys a little bit different. It's my understanding that, say, back in the day, you know, these guys looked at the young rappers as a way out the hood for themselves as well as
Right.
the artists. So you protected that accordingly. It just doesn't seem like that type of protection is around anymore.
What,
Right.
Danny, what about that? What are you saying?
Nah, everybody's for themselves right now. You know, years ago when people was introduced to being in a gang, it was to protect the neighborhood and to protect your rights from the violent activity that was going on with probably the police department,
Right.
or everything else back then. You know, it was social injustice that was happening back then. So we, you know, people grouped together to protect themselves. Now it's just like snakes in a barrel, and it's just like who got the next rap ball.
DREWSKI, what's your take on the gangs in hip hop? Because
Right.
Pop Smoke, we also know that's you know, it's very heavily Crip and his part of the
Right.
his where he was from in Brooklyn and Canarsie.
For some artists, and you know, they might have been doing that before the music, right?
Right.
In some cases, the artist is already a part of that organization.
Some
or that
people are
gang
born into it
before
but-
the music.
Right.
Now, when they get a platform and they get a light, they just feel a little obligated to glorify it in a sense because I was already doing that. Now I'm in a position to kind of rep it. You know, as a DJ, when I get on a set in a club, I'ma still shout out Hot 97 because I'm just repping my brand, repping my, you know. So a lot of times the artist can be doing that before the music, and it just comes along with it. And I think when you're young and you're getting your wave and it's early, you just want to represent everything you have going on, and you know sometimes that comes with it. And you know it's unfortunate, but even within your own city, there could be same gangs going at it.
Right.
Or, you know, and it's just like
Very true.
it's
You mean
senseless.
the sets of the same
right,
gang.
same gang, different sets.
Right.
There you go.
And they want to be the better set or whatever, however you put it. But you know, this could be happening before the music.
Right.
It's a lot of cases the artists are doing this before the music. It's just part of their lifestyle.
But then what people don't understand, the question I always get asked
Right.
is, then why when they become successful, like with a Nipsey, for example, was much further along in his career, is 33 years old, you know, may he rest in peace. But why when they get successful, don't they say, okay, well, that's what I was doing when I was 19 or 20?
Yeah, but we're taught to be loyal. Like
Right.
the
Yeah.
whole thing is to be loyal. So whatever you bring into it, you
Right.
got to be loyal to that. You don't want to switch up. Once you switch up, people start looking at you funny or talking about you
Right.
funny.
Yeah.
So you were taught, you know, we loyal. We got to stand together no matter what.
Well, I want to thank you all for being with us for this episode of Street Soldiers, remembering Pop Smoke, talking about his life, his legacy, the tragedy, and the pressures on young artists and the lessons that we can learn from them, and also, as Chuck pointed out too, supporting the kids and supporting the kids that are really coming up and looking, those 10, 11, 12-year-olds that is getting hit hard by this. So I want to thank you. Danny Sue, great to have you with us again. Thank you so much. DJ DREWSKI, great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Chuck CREEKMUR, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers. I'm your host, LISAEVERS. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. Let's push for peace.